Hello everyone and welcome to Total War Through the Ages Barbarian Invasion. As you saw there, the Eastern Roman Empire sent a large army farther back to the west, and I believe that was a response to that event that you saw just pop up there. That was Rebellion, or worse, which basically spawns a Eastern Roman rebel faction, and the Western Empire also has the equivalent of this. But basically it creates a rebel faction that you can actually interact with, like you can actually have diplomatic relations with. I don't think as the Eastern Roman Empire they can. Your only option is to basically crush the rebellion. But either way, I think they responded to it because of, I think they moved their army because of that. So we assassinate a captain there. Nice, just trying to get my assassin skill up a little bit. And as you also saw, we sent an army to besiege Antioch. Now, we're gonna send an army to, we're gonna send this army over to, sorry about that, had a cough. We're going to send this army to besiege, I believe that's the name of the city is Tarsus. Yeah, it is. So we're going to besiege Tarsus and Antioch because they're both very weak garrisons. And the idea is, if we can capture both of them, that's amazing. If we can't, now again, I'm fairly confident we can capture them, but we may not be able to hold them. If we cannot hold them, that's fine. I'll basically pull back and just try and defend Antioch and not worry about Tarsus. But our army gets attacked. And this is actually, I love it when the AI does this, because they attack me with one army while I'm besieging, which means if I win this battle, I don't have to fight a siege, which is really, really awesome, because that basically means I don't have to, sacrifice siege. So I skipped most of my deployment. I can just show you guys the setup I have here. We're going to advance with our infantry upwards, and we have our cavalry on the flanks. I have all my heavy cavalry on the left, and my horse archers and light and camel riders on the right. So we're going to basically be a lot heavier on our left flank due to the heavy cavalry there.
Enemy have brought up more men.
I do apologize. I am fighting allergies. I'm fighting a cold right now, so you can probably hear that in my voice. So as you saw there, I'm just moving my guys up. Skip ahead a little bit here. I have all my infantry halt while I go ahead and have my horse archers start firing, and my camel riders are actually going to go past, and I'm going to try and flank all the way around. And again, always remember, our heavy cavalry are also horse archers, so they're going to start taking pot shots. And of course, we have our javelineers here, who they're not quite in range yet, but we're going to basically, I ordered them not to go into skirmisher mode, so they won't run away. It does mean that unit will more than likely get destroyed, but I'd rather than be able to actually do a little bit of damage. So yeah, skipping forward a little bit again. The only thing that happened, I just skipped because it actually took a while for that to happen, but our unit of javelineers, skirmish guys, they routed, and at this point we're basically going to just have everyone charge in. We have the enemy basically where we want them, and there are of course a reinforcing army from the defenders of the city, but they are way too far away to help in this fight. So we send our infantry charging in, and we're going to have our cavalry getting ready to charge in as well. Charging in with all of our heavy cavalry in the flanks, and this is basically the main tactic I planned on utilizing with our infantry, because our infantry are not good enough to stand up in a fight to the Roman infantry. Our spear levies aren't. However, they can hold just long enough for us to get a good cavalry charge off, and that's really all we need them to, as long as they're willing to do that. Now, right there you saw me, I turned my horse archers off of auto fire, or fire at will, and that's because you actually get quite a few friendly fire and quite a bit of casualties caused by your own guys if you let them just fire on their own, and they will just keep shooting at your guys. Well, they will shoot at enemies that are fighting your guys, and you'll end up losing a bunch of your own soldiers. Now, I sent one unit to chase down the enemy general because I wanted to completely obliterate them, no survivors. And at that point, we are going to then basically rally our forces back together and bring them forward to take on the enemy army that is the reinforcing force. They only have like 2 or 3 units, I think. They don't have a very large army. Yeah, it looks like they have the 2 units. So same basic thing. Actually, this is really interesting. The cavalry charges our spearmen. Good job there. However, they actually break one of our spear infantry. And I think that's just kind of a testament to how weak our spear infantry are, and how, I mean, the Roman cavalry, they do have some pretty decent heavy cavalry. So anyway, but that said, we just charge in. We one unit of spearmen routes, that's fine. We charge in with everybody else and completely massacre them. Now, the big thing here is that I always try and make sure that I completely wipe out the army, just because I'm not sure how it works. If any of these guys retreat, I don't know if they will basically retreat back into the city and still count as defending it. So either way, we are basically going to completely obliterate them and just exit the battle. And here we get to do what we choose to do with the settlement. So as I learned last campaign, exterminating the populace is incredibly lucrative. So I actually didn't do it there. I actually occupied the settlement peacefully. And I also learned something that these guys will probably frustrate you. So whenever I capture a settlement early on, I always immediately destroy whatever religious building they have there, because it spreads that religion, and I want them to spread my religion, which is Zoroastrianism for the Sassanids. So you see what this does is that the building also, not only does it spread religion, it also just has a flat buff of increasing order, like public order and public happiness. So when you destroy that, that removes that bonus. So you will see for most of this campaign, I destroy the buildings, even though I'm actually shooting myself in the foot by doing so. Like right here, I'm going to destroy this, and boom, their happiness is going to deplete, and it's going to take several turns for the new building to build to replace it. And yeah, you guys can kind of guess how that's gonna end up. So I actually realized that like fairly far into this campaign. I'm like, wait a minute. If I don't destroy the building right off, I can actually let the city stabilize, then destroy it, and then rebuild it. And also catching up, because I was kind of on that little rant right there. I captured the city in the north from the rebels. I occupied it as well. I didn't really I didn't exterminate the populaces in those because I don't want to. Specifically in the one in the north in Tarsus, kind of arguable what I could have done there, but in the northern city, it's not really close to enemy territory, so it's not in danger of it's not under immediate threat. So I wanted to keep it stable and keep the population up, because that's the main downside to exterminating the population, is it basically means you're going to have to wait quite a while for the population to build back up before you can basically continue on the upgrading. So here we have a reinforcing force coming in to assist the siege in Antioch. We're also going to purchase a mercenary ballista, and we're going to just getting ready to capture it.
Move out. No more moves, sire.
Now, the other thing I wanted to mention is a lot of the cities that are very close to us that the Eastern Roman Empire have are very lightly garrisoned. However, as you can see there, they have two sizable armies, one just south of Antioch and one slightly to the north of Tarsus. So the main issue there is that those armies are going to give me some problems. So I decided, you know what, hey, we're going to basically just say screw Tarsus, and we're going to abandon it, because we also had revolts there as well, and I was like, I'm not going to be able to hold this city with the army that I have there. It's just not going to work. I've got too much cavalry, and I have too many cavalry, and the enemy army is just going to be too large. So I decided we are going to pull out and reinforce the army that's at Antioch and completely abandon Tarsus. So as you saw there, I destroyed all of the building upgrades there, because I don't want the Romans, the Eastern Empire, when they capture it back, I don't want them to basically be able to retake the settlement. So here we go, capture Antioch. I auto-resolved the battle just because I didn't feel like fighting an unnecessary battle because I had such overwhelming advantage. So first thing we do, we exterminate the populace, and then we are immediately going to go in and start repairing buildings. And I screwed up. So you see, happiness was in the green right there. I destroyed the monastery, I destroyed the religious building, and boom, tanks down to the red. So you can just see there very blatantly what happened. But I didn't notice that until, like I said, a lot farther into the campaign. So I do apologize. That's going to be really infuriating now that I've pointed it out to you guys. Anyone who wasn't aware of that already, I'm sure is just going to be yelling at their screen constantly, being like, what are you doing? And as we saw there, a civil revolt, so Tarsus now has a full garrison of units, which is kind of infuriating. However, there is a silver lining. Those troops are predominantly like peasants and then levies, so they're not good quality, so I'm not really that worried about it. We have one of our children have come of age, so we have a new general who we're going to be sending up to the front lines now. And as you also probably saw, the Eastern Roman Empire offloaded a fairly sizable army from a fleet they had in the Mediterranean just to the south of Antioch. So at this point, Antioch's going to be the place to defend, and we have our work cut out for us because they have like 3 sizable, well, actually 4 if you count the garrison from Tarsus. If you count that, they have 4 sizable armies that they can come and attack us with. Now, silver lining, we actually have almost a full army, a full garrison at Antioch. Now, of course, our units have taken damage. They do have casualties. So, while that, yeah, and there you go. They're all basically predominantly peasants there, as I mentioned earlier. But yeah, in Antioch, a bunch of our guys have taken a bunch of our units there have taken casualties. So, it's going to be interesting. And it won't take too long before we get to see what's going to happen. So, and as you see there, so there's if you saw the unit, the faction symbols, there's the Eastern Roman Empire, which is purple, the Western Roman Empire, which is red, and then you saw one that was kind of like a green. That is one of the rebel factions. I don't recall if it was the East or West, but I think it was the West. Yeah, it was the West, because the green is West, and then like sort of like a teal colored is the Eastern Empire rebels. So that's interesting. Those are factions that can basically exist or not exist. Like, they bounce back and forth from coming into existence or not. And I don't know what triggers it, because I haven't played as the Western or Eastern Empire. But yeah, we get attacked, and honestly, like, I look at this army and I'm like, this is not going to be that hard. They only have 2 units of, like, sword and board infantry. And the rest of them are spearmen and 1 unit of archers. I have a sizable cavalry force, so you will see me employ for the first time, a really strong, or basically a tactic that I always do in sieges. So, Sassanids, they're not a very good sieging faction. They're all about open battles. So, what do? I charge all my cavalry outside the gates and fight them outside the walls, because if I tried to fight them on the walls, half my army is cavalry, so I'm not going to do too well on the walls. Now, again, I could wait for them to get in the streets and stuff like that, but the problem with that is it's harder for me to flank. We're so much closed in. My horse archers aren't as effective. So I want to fight on open ground, in the open, where I'm not fighting in the streets where it's really claustrophobic and I'm forced to like tunnel into certain areas. I want to have that free movement in the open. So that's basically why I charge out. I also I do have some units on the walls, including my archers, which I basically we're trying to have my archers take down the siege tower initially. When I basically decided that wasn't worth it, I ended up having them just attack the enemy archer unit to shoot them down. So we charge out with our cavalry, rushing them out because I didn't want them to get engaged right outside the gate. We also, the towers on our walls, specifically the gatehouse ones, destroy the enemy ram. So the only way for them to get in now is if they are able to sap the walls, which we're not going to let that happen, not with all those cavalries out there. And also, of course, the siege tower. So I was having my archers using fires, trying to destroy the siege tower, because at that point they have to use the saps, and my cavalry can basically harass them to prevent them from doing that, because I wanted to avoid letting them get on the walls or get in the city. Unfortunately, the siege tower was pretty sturdy, and I wasn't able to bring it down, so it does get to the walls, as you see in the background. And meanwhile, we have our cavalry forces outside, rushing around everywhere. Our horse archers are just shooting away at the enemy, weakening them up until we go in for a charge. And the main thing was I wanted my guys to stay fairly far away, because all of the Eastern Roman Empire infantry, they all have javelins that they can throw, even their spear infantry. So as you see there, my camel riders get caught out, so I go ahead and have them charge in. I have a unit of heavy cavalry charge in to support them, and with the idea of being to break that unit, which is also the infantry unit as well. But unfortunately, my camel riders break right when my heavy cavalry charges in, so we're not able to sandwich them, but heavy cavalry are going to do some work for us there. We also have our other heavy cavalry horse archers just running away and shooting, as horse archers are known to do. This was a very interesting, because this was the first siege I ever fought. This was the first siege I fought defending, and it's actually the first siege I fought ever. Because so far, both of these sieges I've actually auto-resolved, so I haven't actually fought a battle where I was attacking. And you would notice that's a trend. Unlike in the Roman campaign, where I had a lot of sieges where I was assaulting, I don't have that many, and that's mostly due to the fact that as the Sassanids, we're not a siege faction, so the only time I usually am besieging enemy settlements is in a situation where I have overwhelming odds and I can just, safely auto-resolve anyway. It also helps save time, and not only for the recording, but also for the episode. So the siege tower does get to the wall, as you saw there, and the enemy does have infantry on the walls, and my spearmen are not doing so great, guys. I'll be honest, they're not doing so great. We are able to do quite a bit of damage to this unit here. and we are going to eliminate them, but there's another enemy unit already in the siege tower making their way up. So once again, not looking too great. And as you see there, the second unit gets on the walls. This is skipping forward a little bit. Both of my units my one unit spearman has already broken, and they're actually fighting to the death because they don't have a place to run to right now. And then the rest of the other unit spearman is still holding for the time being. So we also have a third unit spearman on the ground. So at this point, both our units of spearmen, as you can see there, are routing and fighting to the death. Our cavalry, we're moving back inside the walls because the goal here is wait for the enemies to come down off the walls and just charge them from both sides with cavalry and wreck them. I'm also pulling back all of my weakened units to the town center. I don't want to lose any units unnecessarily, as those camel riders, at least some of them, I believe, have experience, so we want to try and just retrain them later. So at this point, I was trying to utilize the ballista to fire some shots there, but it wasn't really working, so I just was like, screw this. I just decided to have the ballista stop firing, and then we charged with our infantry and caught them out. But there's still, so we just routed that one unit of enemy infantry, but there's a second one still on the walls. So we've ended up, they didn't come off the walls for a long time, so I eventually had to just send my unit, my last unit of spearmen up. Thankfully, we had huge numbers advantage, so we were able to beat them. So first army successfully withdrawn. The one other thing that I did not mention there is we had a heroic death. I didn't have that on. I didn't catch that on camera because it was a really dumb thing. So my general was trying to come through the gates when the enemy controlled the gates, so he died to the boiling oil being poured on him. So not my finest moment. I forgot to actually include that in the footage there, but either way, that was the first siege of Antioch. It will not be the last, but that's all the time I have for this episode. So thank you all for watching. Be sure to check back for more Total War Through the Ages, and as always, till next time.